Hi. This is so
Hi.
exciting.
I
Thanks for
know.
thanks for tuning in to Gabbing with Girlfriends. And my girlfriend today and every day is Ariel Gale. And this is really exciting because she and I have been trying to catch up, it seems like forever, and I haven't seen her forever. So this is fun. We get to catch up in front of anybody that's listening or watching or whatever.
Yes. I never know where you are anymore.
Neither do
Where
I.
in the world is Gloria?
Oh, yeah, that should be a game we can play. So how are you? Are you good?
I'm good. Everything is,
Are you
busy as usual.
are you surviving your household drama?
Yes. Everything is finally starting to come into place with my household dramas. Renovations are always dramatic. So
Always,
always
always.
dramatic. So there's an end in sight. So it's good.
Yay.
Actually, my new house, it's done. It's beautiful. I love it.
I'm excited to see it.
I'm excited. You have to come. It's
I know.
gorgeous.
It's fun. It's fun to have.
So where are
Um,
you? In Vegas?
I am. I'm here for a little bit back and then back to Utah and then back to England. And so the cycle goes. Um, okay.
Exactly.
Speaking of Vegas, I know a handful of people that grew up in Vegas, that were born and raised in Vegas. And it's really funny because most of that handful of people, I think you all know each other kind of. You do. I don't think you know Frankie, but Frankie knows Dasha and her family. And I don't know how you guys missed each other, but everybody kind of knows everybody. That's
It's a
fun.
very small town. When I was growing up there were just a couple 100,000 people there probably. And when my mom was growing up there, it was even smaller. Barstow was bigger
Is
when
that
my mom
true?
was growing. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So at one time Barstow was bigger than Vegas.
How funny is that? So when your mom was growing up, and her mother is the most amazing woman, she is so lovely. And yes, she needs to come on too. And she's definitely a chat for another day, but
She has the best stories.
I can't even imagine because your stories are so great.
Oh.
So when your mom was growing up here, how many casinos were there?
um, well, I don't know I don't think there were a lot of casinos. I mean, my family was sort of instrumental in building the casinos. I or not building the casinos, but my grandfather did the advertising for the Flamingo Hilton when it was the Flamingo Hotel. It turned into the Flamingo Hilton, but it was the Flamingo Hotel. Um, I mean, they were, my grandparents were there when they were building the sands and the dunes and original Vegas. So I don't even think there was hotels before that. But maybe
Isn't that
I'm
funny?
wrong.
No, I bet.
Yeah.
No. I mean, they had to have started at some point, but I know even
Yeah.
as far back as when my husband first started coming here, I think there was less than a handful or a handful, whatever. But I mean, the strip wasn't the strip, that's for sure.
No, no.
Um, but
Yeah.
it's weird to think. I love that when you see your family must have pictures of, every so many decades of the growth. And that's just, I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty incredible because there's a lot of places. I know when I'm away from England for a while, I'll go someplace and I'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe how much this has grown. Or, look, there's another Starbucks or whatever. But to see some kind of growth, like you said, with Barstow having once upon a time been bigger, to see a city that small go to a city this size is really, I mean,
Well, and it
crazy.
was at one point the fastest growing city in America. I think after Houston, Vegas became like the fastest growing city, and it just exploded in population. So it went from a couple 100,000 to, I think there's like close to 3 million people there now. Like, it's a proper city. But when we moved to where my family lives now, roads didn't even go out there. I mean, it was dirt roads. And now it's just the other part of town, It's so
It
it's
still
crazy.
feels quite rural out there, though.
It
It
is
does,
very, yes, it certainly
which is
does.
great. which is
Yeah.
great, especially with that property with all the animals and whatever. That's great.
Yeah.
So it's really, you just said something about the city being, anyway, I can't remember, but it is pretty amazing. Oh no, the city's still growing. I mean, it seems like, every time, probably twice a year, you hear all the people leaving California or all the people, finding out that Vegas is more than the Strip. Because so many people, if you don't live here, you don't know.
Growing up, people used to always ask me if I lived in a casino.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They couldn't even imagine people like lived in Las Vegas.
Isn't that funny?
So, I mean, now people know because Vegas is Vegas, but
Did they assume you'd grow up to be a stripper?
Or showgirl probably, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a better word.
We have both in town, and showgirls are very, very respectable, performers.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with a lot of showgirls, actually. A lot of my friends' moms and aunts were showgirls. I grew up in backstage at Jubilee and, Siegfried and Roy. I had a friend whose mom and aunt were showgirls for Siegfried and Roy, and another friend whose mom was a showgirl at Jubilee. So, that was growing up in Vegas. It was a different kind of growing up, for sure.
How cool is that? Yeah. I mean, just different. It's just, but I don't know why different, because if you grew up in Fort Worth or if you grew up in Spokane or wherever you grew up, it's different, right?
Yeah. Every city has their thing. We just had showgirls and gangsters.
They don't have those in Fort Worth, I don't think. And they don't have them in Spokane. I guess not every city does have showgirls and casinos, but more do now.
Yeah, it's still a one-of-a-kind city, though. I mean, there's no place like Vegas.
Well, there isn't. And you know what? It's really like every restaurant in the world is here in Vegas. There's everything. I mean, you don't need, God only knows, every store you could ever even think of going to is in Vegas. And I'll never understand that. I don't understand how many Chanel stores any particular city could need. Do you know what I mean? There's at least one in every major hotel. Like,
who shops anymore?
Yes. Like, that's a whole other question, because I have not. It's really funny because I was just in LA and Terry and I went to Century City. That's a whole new. I had no idea it was like that. I mean,
the food
totally
court.
Different.
Oh, the mall, just Century City in general.
But we walked into Bloomingdale's and I didn't know what to do. I haven't been into a store in so long. It was like I couldn't get out of there quickly enough.
Yeah,
and shopping with my husband isn't a quick experience, and it was like, this is not cool. I remember why I don't like this.
I never go to malls anymore.
But it's not funny. That was a silver lining with the pandemic, really, is that we all learned to not shop in person, which is sad because that's how people make their money. I mean, there's, people need the retail outlets or they lose their job.
In reality, I don't need anything else.
No, me neither. I mean, it's,
So there's also that.
None of us should be shopping online or in a store anyway. Nobody I know, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. No one I know.
So growing up in Vegas, well, to you was just, I mean, that's just your norm.
That's what it. Yeah, that's what it was, and it was a wonderful childhood. I have an amazing family, and we had everything we wanted and needed, and so it was great. We were always having adventures and learning things, and I was in I mean, I don't even know where to start. I don't know how long this podcast is supposed to be.
Oh no, we're going to need several episodes because we could do
I don't know where to even start. It was great. It was.
How old were you when you moved out to that property?
11. So I grew up in the center of town. I was, in the Las Vegas Country Club until I was 11. But we found that property when I was 5. I started kindergarten, and my best friend in kindergarten. I wanted to go on a play date, and my mom is born and raised in Las Vegas. And when she was taking me out there, she was like, who lives out here? I'm not leaving my daughter out here. Who are these people? I've never been here. And then she turned down the street and saw these orchards, and you've seen it. And she just fell in love, and she dropped me off and said, I'm going to get my husband, and forgot that I was 5 and she wasn't going to leave me with these people in the middle of nowhere. And so we bought the land when I was about 5, but we didn't end up moving out there until I was 11. It took a while for us to get building permits, and then it took a while to build the house. It's a fully adobe house, and
didn't they make the bricks themselves?
Yeah, so that's what part of why it took so long to make was, or to build. It's fully adobe, and it took like 1.5 years to get building permits for the house, because they're like, you can't make a house out of mud. And my parents were like, of course you can. Go look at adobe houses in Mexico and New Mexico, that they've been standing for thousands of years, So we finally got the building permits, and then they made all the bricks out of mud. And where the forest is now in the front, that was the mud pit, actually. My brother Jesse and I loved playing in the mud pit and like swim. It was huge. And so it's swamp cooled and solar heated. And I mean, we're going back to the late 80s, early 90s. So this was before it was like a cool thing. My parents were always environmentalists and cared about the planet. And, so we're interested in making as little impact on the planet as possible, and actually, providing what it needs to thrive versus, we like to give versus take. So we care about food security, and we grow a lot of food, and we save animals, and we, yeah.
So you grew up a vegan. Who was vegan first, your mom or your dad?
My mom. So my mom was a vegetarian, and when she met my dad, he comes from Texas and was eating all kinds of weird stuff before they met. And so when he met her, he became a vegetarian. And then I think that's when he became a vegetarian, or maybe it was when they went and saw Dr. Clapper. Actually, we were part of World Vegetarian Day in the 80s. River Phoenix was there with his family, and Dr. Clapper was speaking. And my parents heard Dr. Clapper speak maybe before this, or something happened. And after my mom heard Dr. Clapper, she went vegan, and my dad was vegetarian or went vegetarian or something. And so that was in the 80s. But my mom went vegetarian more than 50 years ago. She always felt weird eating meat. And so she didn't think anyone in the world was like her until she moved to London, actually, and Los Angeles. And so that, I think, was in the 60s.
Because that's the way my husband was. He hadn't had meat since he was 17, but you couldn't be a vegan back then because, like, he was English, so he had milk in his tea. They didn't have soy milk then, or soy butter. And back then, with him being on the road, he lived on baked potatoes. So it's baked potatoes and disgusting butter or whatever. So you couldn't be a vegan back then.
Well, I mean, not eating meat was sort of a foreign concept back then.
Definitely.
So, I mean, not eating dairy too would be like, what are you doing? When my mom started having kids, she wanted to raise us vegetarian, and my grandma was like, you can't have vegetarian kids. You're gonna raise little people, but she didn't. She used a different word at that time. And it turns out we're actually some of the tallest ones in the family. So
that's funny.
Not only were we not little people, we're very tall.
Big people. Well, not big people. See, you really have to be careful with your words these days.
I know. Yeah, but I mean, we're all over average height for men and women. So.
And it's my son, who lives in Los Angeles, he and his wife raise their kids as close to vegan as possible. If they're at somebody's house, they're having cheese pizza, they can't starve. So, they do what they can do as kids, but they are, they're vegan at home. And
Yeah.
my granddaughter's 12 and she's 5'8.5". So I think that
Exactly.
yeah, I think whatever protein they're having is working somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have very healthy children, vegetarian, vegan children. I don't get sick. I don't take
Don't say that.
medicine.
Don't even say that.
No,
Be
I
not
can't.
good.
I can always say it because it's true. I just don't. I mean, I remember the one time I've had the flu in my life. Like it's
Don't. I mean,
it's
that's.
that
Do you
infrequent.
get flu vaccines?
No, God no.
No, me neither.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm the same. I see a tail.
Yeah, that's Bonnie. Oh, and Justin's there too. I have my 2 dogs in my room with me because they bark at everything. So this would not be quiet if
That's
they weren't
quiet.
in the office with me.
So how did you end up in LA?
So I moved to LA when I had just turned 18 years old, and I had already lived quite a life by that point. And I was moving to Los Angeles to get my life together. Actually, I heard there was a great sober community in Los Angeles. And so I moved to LA, believe it or not, to get sober and get my life together. When I was 18 years. Yeah, when I was 18. Yeah. So that was my original reason for moving to LA.
And how did that work out?
Well, I did not get sober, but I eventually got my life together. So it worked out. I mean, I'm still here and I'm doing very well. So it eventually worked out for me. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun. And that's why when you said you have an interesting life, I'm like, I don't know how interesting it is anymore. It's not wild like it used to be, but it's very normal now. I work. But
it's not normal.
That I take care of.
It isn't normal because what you do work-wise is you provide a voice for the voiceless, and by way of the work you do with children and the work you do with animals, and it's so commendable. It's commendable when somebody does one or the other, and you do both. So,
well,
let's hear it.
For me, I was born into the animal movement. I mean, my mom was a radical animal rights activist. When I was a child, she was one of the very first recipients of a Genesis Award, actually. So she has been doing this a long time. So I was born into the movement, and so animal activism was always part of me. In fact, it was one of the things that helped me get my life on track, was going and working with Chris DeRose at Last Chance for Animals. I was 19 or 20 years old or something.
I don't know that I knew it was that long.
Yeah, my mom called Chris and said, my daughter is not doing good things in Los Angeles and she needs a job. Can she come work at LCA or intern at LCA until she goes back to school? And I went to work with Chris, and I worked with him in the campaigns department for 3 years. I think it was over 3 years. And then so it was reconnecting with my roots, my animal rights roots, that helped kind of start getting me out of the craziness that I was doing. That wasn't the end of my craziness by any means, but it
different
was
crazy.
Different crazy. I also, around that time, I started an independent record label. And so I, toured the world.
And how did you do that? Who did you do that with?
Myself. It was called Ariel Records. And I worked with LA underground hip hop artists. And I'm
so jealous.
It was so much fun. It was amazing. In fact, it was incredible experience. It just was bad timing. I think it was when Napster was starting to make its way onto the scene. And so, it was when digital music was taking over. And
how many years was that? How many years did you do that?
Several years. I managed one artist but worked with a lot of other artists that, I grew up listening to. It was incredible. I became good friends with Fat Lip from Farside, and he lived with me for a while, helped him get back on his feet. I worked with incredible, you know, legends. And speaking of Tommy, I am PSC from Living Legends, Micah 9 from Freestyle Fellowship, like just tons of amazing hip hop artists. And
That's so cool.
yeah, just
And
it was
a
a
great
lot of fun.
experience, if nothing
It
else.
was a lot. Yeah,
different.
it was a ton of fun. Just weird, you know, the whole music industry changed, obviously, you know, with downloading music. And, you know, it just, so it was a better move to get out of that. And I also realized that I was managing my friends and artists' mental health better than I was managing their music careers. And so I ended up going back to school, and I studied psychology and public policy and law and got degrees in those. But that was actually after I started working with foster kids. So so I'm kind of jumping around, but so I had always worked with animal rights. And so, you know, when I was looking to start getting more involved and what can I do next, kids was like the logical next step for me. So yeah, that's how I started working with kids.
So how did you know? Oh, I don't even know what the question is. How did you know where to go? Like, how did you know what agency or organization or?
So I didn't totally know. And I ended up going to Big Brothers Big Sisters to just hear out their program, and it's an incredible program, but it didn't like, and I don't know why, but it just wasn't something that I was like, yes, I have to do this.
Wait, sorry to interrupt, but I have to tell you this. You know, I tried to be a big sister in LA and they wouldn't let me because I didn't speak Spanish.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm really serious. That's sad.
That's
I really wanted to do it too.
so
This was
weird.
years ago, but I really wanted to do it. I couldn't.
That's really weird. Yeah.
Just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, strange. That's a really terrible reason to turn anyone down from being a mentor for somebody.
Yeah.
Partner you with someone who speaks English. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just thinking of a solution.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so I remembered when I was, you know, trying to be sober and going to different groups, I remember meeting a woman who was a court-appointed advocate for foster youth. And she had always stuck out to me. And just like, I just always remembered this woman. And I was young when I first met her. I mean, I met her when I was probably 18, 19 years old or 20 years old or something. So definitely not in a position to help anyone. So during this time when I was looking for an organization to help, I remembered CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocate. And so I applied and then went through that whole interview process. And I actually became a CASA during a really interesting time in their history. So the CASA program is a national program, but each chapter is independent, and CASA Los Angeles is one of the pilot programs in the country for CASA because Los Angeles has the largest foster care system. We have the most number of children in foster care in California, and specifically Los Angeles. Los Angeles County has 40,000 children in foster care.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just LA County. That's not San Bernardino, Kern, Orange. You know, Orange County has their own cost. This is just Los Angeles County has 40,000 children. And when I started, it was 28,000. So it's going up. The problem is not getting better. It's getting worse. When I started with CASA, though, CASA Los Angeles was federally funded. It was, you know, got $1 million+ every year from the government. So they were getting federal money. And when I became a CASA and went through the interview process and the training process, they had just lost, you know, there were a lot of budget cuts in the government. And so this is real world examples of what happens when there are budget cuts in the government. CASA lost its federal funding. And this is a critical program, in my opinion. I think every city that has a foster care system needs a CASA program. And so they lost their federal funding and had to go nonprofit.
Why don't they all have that program?
I don't know. actually. There's a lot. There's hundreds of CASA programs across the country, but maybe some cities don't need it. I don't know. But I think every foster child needs a CASA. And there's just not enough CASAs for all the foster kids.
Yeah, I get it.
So, and I can tell you about the CASA program, but so when I started, they had just gone nonprofit, and actually, and they had to change executive directors. And so I was there for that changeover. And with my nonprofit experience, I was going in and talking to the new executive director, who was amazing, about ways that I saw moving forward with the CASA program. They built this incredible board. It's one of the most amazing boards I've ever met in my life. And so, yeah, Dillis Garcia was the executive director that just took them to the next level, and they went nonprofit. And so it's a volunteer program. It's totally volunteer. CASAs are totally volunteer. And we are the eyes and the ears for the judge outside of court. We take on cases. We're officers of the court, and we take on cases, and we get to know the child or children on the case and get to know their wants, their needs, their desires, all of it. And I hold education rights for kids, and which means I make all education decisions. I have kids on IEPs, individualized education plans. So they need accommodations in school that they don't usually get unless there's some adult asking, advocating for them. So I also hold developmental decision-making rights for some kids if they're like regional center clients. So just learning, so now I've been a CASA for 10, 11, 12 years or something. And I've had multiple cases, and I've helped a lot of children not a lot, but several kids get adopted. I actually have an 11-year-old on track to getting adopted right now, actually, which is awesome.
So since it's on a volunteer basis, do you ever take time saying, I need the next 4 months off? Or, because it has to be a draining sort of.
So I have not actually taken time off from this in the last 10 plus years. And there's been a lot going on in my life in the last 6 months. So when this case wraps up, I'm going to take a little time off.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. And I hate saying that, actually, because I know there's one less CASA out there for kids, but I just kind of need to regroup on my end a little bit. And so, yeah.
You do it. Having done this for 11 years, you deserve a break, because it's just any job, if it's volunteer or a paid, whatever it is, everything you need a break. Everybody needs a break. And
I also, if I transition off a case, or if a case ends and the child wants to stay in touch with me, I stay in touch with them. I actually have, she's turning 21 in tomorrow, actually. I just looked at the date. She'll be 21 tomorrow, but I've been with her since she was 14. So, and she wants to stay in touch, and of course I'm going to stay in touch with her. And I have another one, huh?
Do they encourage or discourage that, or it's just an individual choice?
It's entirely up to the CASA. We have very strict boundaries when we are actually their CASA. When we are assigned to their case, we can't introduce the child or children to our family or friends or dogs, or,
I get that.
We have to maintain some sort of distance and objectivity, obviously. But yeah, once I'm not their CASA and they stay in my life, if they want to meet my family and friends, they can. Yeah.
And has that happened?
It has not, actually, but I've stayed in touch with them. I haven't talked to my Brandon in a while. He is 24 now, but I started working with him when he was 12. And 3 of his siblings were actually adopted together. That was part of my advocacy, I had them all declared a sibling set. And then a couple years later, they ended up getting adopted together, which was beautiful. Oh, awesome. So yeah. So great, incredibly difficult work. Obviously, the stories you hear are unbelievably painful sometimes, but also very rewarding when you have good outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like every animal that I have anything to do with rescuing, or any animal that I can speak for, is so rewarding to me that I can't even imagine doing it with children as well. I mean, I would just spend my whole life feeling rewarded and being on cloud nine. And
Well,
yeah, it's so
yes and
cool.
no. Yes and no. You also wish you could do more for them
Of
sometimes. I
course,
mean,
of
you want
course.
to come in and just change their world overnight. And that was actually something that, you know, I know why there's such a huge turnover in, sorry, I have a call coming in. I know why there's such a huge turnover rate in social services, and why there's a high burnout rate for volunteers in this type of position. You know, it's really, it's not easy, obviously. And I saw that with my first case, actually. I was I was not ready to let go of the case. It's one that but they kept moving her so far out of jurisdiction that logistically I couldn't keep the case. And so I don't feel like I got closure with that one. And it's hard, when you have those moments, it's hard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you wonder what difference you're actually making sometimes. But then you start to realize that, I have these feelings, and I can turn around and walk away at any time. That's my choice. And these children don't have that choice. This is their life.
Of
This
course.
is, their reality. And if it's hard for me, imagine how difficult it is
No,
for them.
it just,
And so I shifted my perspective, and that's why I think I have been doing it for so long uninterrupted, is because I try not to think about how hard it is for me. I try to keep the kids in, as my focus and in perspective.
so the child that moved out of jurisdiction, did you ever find out what happened to her?
So I kept in touch with her for a while. I actually, when she was just outside of LA County, I kept the case as long as I kept the case. And then they ended up moving her to, they said it was going to be an adoptive home out in like Victorville area. And I was like, how is this an adoptive home? The woman and the child have never met. Like, how do you know that they're going to hit it off, And so I was like, I don't think that she should move out there right now. Like, let's start building this relationship and see if it's going to work before
Do you
we just
think?
move her so far out. And they wouldn't. So when they moved her out there, I said I can only keep the case for a month, because like if I'm holding education rights and there's an issue at school, like it's going to take me 2 hours to get out there. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so I transitioned the case over, and I kept in touch with the foster mom and went to visit when I could. And they ended up moving her out of that foster home. But because I was still in touch with the foster mom, I found out where she went. She ended up going out to a group home out near Palm Springs. So I followed her. I, would go out and visit her in Beaumont when I could. And then when she was moved from that group home, no one would give me, because they didn't know who I was. Like I had no rights to this child. I had no access to any of her records. So nobody would tell me where she went. And I have no idea where she went.
Wow.
So I lost track of her then. Yeah. I lost track of her after that group home, but yeah.
Okay, so to lighten up the subject a bit, I've got some questions for you, a little quiz. Okay. Okay, if you were an animal, what species would you be and why?
Oh, that's so hard. Probably a cat. I love cats, but I don't think so, actually, because cats can't be vegetarians. So I don't want to be a cat. I don't.
You could almost be anything in the world but a cat.
I know.
Almost everything is vegetarian.
And I'm such a cat person, but I don't live with any cats. That's hard. That's a hard one, because there's so many cool animals, and would be cool to be kind of a lot of them. Like
Are
a
any of your dogs
giraffe.
vegetarian?
No,
I have one
no,
vegan dog. I
that's
do.
amazing. I had a boxer who was allergic to all grains, and so he was on a grain-free diet, and so I had him for 13 years, and so I, just kept all dogs on that diet because he did so well on it. I've just always kept everyone on
And
that.
funnily enough, I have a dog who can't be grain free.
Mm,
His
interesting.
main breed. I mean, he's not sure what all he is, but he has a lot of Cavalier King Charles in him, and they can't eat grain free food.
Oh,
Isn't
interesting.
that weird?
I have a Brussels Griffon, and they are part King Charles.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I just found out too that so Brussels Griffons are a mix of a King Charles Spaniel and a pug.
Who knew? And
I
tiny,
know.
little, right?
And I know that now that you know that when you see Brussels, you see totally
Oh, that's
if it's more
funny.
King Charles or more pug, because the reddish ones are kind of shorter and
Hmm.
stockier, like
Hmm.
the pug body, and then Justin is more King Charles body with the long legs, and he totally has a King Charles face but smushy nose, like pug.
Funny. That's
Yeah, you
funny.
totally see the characteristics of both breeds once you know
I
that.
love it. That's
I
cute.
mean, they're rescues.
Yeah,
All
no, I
my
know.
dogs are rescues, but
Isn't it bizarre to think people buy dogs?
well, that's the other part is depending on what city you go to, like up to 40% of all dogs in shelters are purebreds.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I mean, I've had so many purebred dogs and they're all from the shelter.
Yeah, you just Google Labrador rescue or whatever
Yeah.
rescue, and there you
There,
go.
there's
Half of
breed
them in there will
specific.
be
Yeah.
anyway. Okay, so giraffe, was that your animal
Well,
you
I
decided
think it
on?
would be cool because you have such a great view of everything,
Yes, you
you
do.
know?
That's cool.
So that would be a cool animal. I love if I was just being totally superficial and wanted to just be gorgeous, I'd be a flamingo probably.
That's a good one
Flamingos,
too.
I mean, are just
But
incredible.
but when you look at a giraffe's eyelashes, oh my God. I mean, that you
I
melt. I mean, that's just like,
I've never looked at their.
oh yeah, do that. Do that.
Oh,
And
how cute.
did you know that their tongues are, this probably isn't exactly the correct word, but their tongues are antiseptic.
Really?
Like,
Dogs have like antibacterial type mouths too. Dogs' mouths are cleaner than humans' mouths.
well, I believe that anyway. um, and cats certainly are too. But
Yeah, because they have to, if they have wounds and stuff, I think they have
yeah,
to lick it and they clean it. And in the wild, they don't have somebody putting Neosporin on
no.
it.
When I was at Giraffe Manor, um, I put this treat in my mouth, which is molasses, and the giraffe comes and gets it and kind of French kisses you at the same time. And I was kind of like, oh, is that okay? And they're like, it's so okay. It probably cured whatever you may have had, not literally,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Yeah.
was really awesome. And did you know
Yeah.
giraffes? You know how we walk like this, our legs one in front of the other. They
Mhm.
walk. I'd almost have to show you on my hands and knees, but I won't. Like their two move at the same time. They're front and back
Oh,
together,
I know what you're talking
together,
about.
front and back.
Oh. So they pick
Fascinating.
up 2 feet at once?
Mm-hmm. Front and back.
Oh.
Am I doing that wrong? I may be doing it
That's
wrong.
an interesting move.
I think I'm
The
doing it
things
wrong. I'm gonna Google this and send it to you later. But whatever they do is pretty fascinating to watch.
Oh, I'm sure that's what I'm saying. There's so many benefits to being all different types of every
No, I
animal
like
has a
giraffe. I think I'm gonna
benefit.
change mine to giraffe too.
It's a great view. You can
Yeah,
see the world.
yeah, I love it. I love it. If you could only listen to one song until the end of time, what would it be?
Oh God, that's so hard.
That's really hard.
That's really hard. because there's way too much good music out there. I don't know if I can
Two
answer that
songs.
one.
Okay, you can
Well,
do two.
because I mean, can I get one song for a mood for each mood? I mean,
So how many moods do you have? That's 3 songs then. I only have 1 mood. Okay, go on. 3.
No, I mean, I don't know. It's super hard because like when I was younger and, you know, Led Zeppelin was like my saving grace. If I ever, you know, if I needed to like de-stress or I felt like everything was going to hell in a handbag, I like put Led Zeppelin on and I was like, okay, the world is okay now. So, you know, Girls Just Want to Have Fun
That's
is
a good
one of
one.
my favorite songs.
That's a
And
good
my
one.
dad used to say whenever I would have friends over, he'd walk down the hall and scream that song and scream out that song. So that's, I don't know, Beatles. I mean, I grew up with a lot of Beatles, but then Nina Simone and Billie Holiday. I mean, how do you even choose? That's what I'm saying.
No,
Like,
I don't think I could do it either.
I can't choose. There's no way.
It's
That's why I
a
said
tough one.
mood. Like, do I want to go the jazz route? Do I want to go punk rock? Like, you know, are we talking Black Flag? Are we
All
talking?
right. Okay, I get it. I don't think anything by Black Flag would be the only thing you'd want to listen to between now and the end of time.
I know, but I'm
With
just
all due
saying, like,
respect there.
but I'm saying like a mood. Like if I,
No, I
you
get it.
know,
I get it.
you know.
Okay, either alcohol or non-alcohol. What's your favorite drink? If you could only drink one thing forever, besides water.
Can I get 2?
Okay, you can do an alcohol and a non-alcohol. Is that what it is?
No.
Okay, go on.
Gin and tequila. So gin
And that is
and
2.
soda.
That's not together, right?
Right. That's why I said I need 2.
Okay, just double
Not
checking.
together.
May not
Yeah.
think of drink,
Gin and
I wasn't
soda
sure.
or tequila.
Straight.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or with a little splash of soda.
okay. Okay, well, that's good.
I love gin though. I love gin.
Which is the one that doesn't smell, gin or vodka?
Vodka.
And do you have a quote or a motivational quote that you live by or that you want to share or that means something to you?
Probably be the change you wish to see in the world. Gandhi. I love that.
I love that.
I think leading by example is the best way to lead. And I also know that that was also what helped me get out of all of my craziness that I went through when I was younger, was getting out of myself and being of service. And, you know, that's what heals. So yeah, be the change you wish to see in the world.
That. I love that. So speaking of which, if you could redo anything in your life all over again, what would it be, or would you not?
I would not. I have no regrets.
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Everything that I've done
trivial, superficial.
Everything that has happened to me has gotten me to this point, good and bad.
Yeah, I've had major ones. I have little ones. Like,
I mean, I have a major one that obviously that I don't want to really talk about. And probably edit this out because I don't want to cry about my dad dying, obviously. I mean, I would change that big time, but in my personal life, like what I've done now, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, I don't think I would either, except for little superficial things. Like recently I went someplace and I wish I'd have done that whole day differently. And I still think about it all the time. Like I would have done everything differently about that day. But it's not a life changer. It's not major enough that if I could redo my life all over again, I probably would have just thought, I'm not even going to go to where I went to make me leave there thinking that. But anyway, but no, I think in the grand scheme of things, I think I'd probably be pretty happy with the way my life ended up too. But
me too. I mean, everything is, life is all about learning and experiences. And, even when I was struggling and having the hardest times, it set me on, I mean, I shouldn't say it set me on my path. I was always on my path, but it put me into other situations that I learned from and I grew from. And, so today I live a life that, I keep my side of the street clean. I make sure that I'm doing my part to make the world a better place. And so I got there, I got to this place because of everything I've been through. So, it's, if I wanted to change something, then I might not have ended up here.
Be here, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I may have never met you.
Right.
And then my life would have been different too, because I wouldn't have had the spot I have in my heart for both you and your mom.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Oh. What animals do you have in
Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay, so horses, goats, sheep, pigs, chickens, dogs, cats, buffalo, cows.
As you do.
Donkeys.
I love it.
What else?
Did you know, and you must know this because you have them, but you may not, because I have a friend in LA that has donkeys and she didn't know this. Do you know every donkey has a cross on their back?
I know the cross you're talking about. I don't think I knew every donkey had it. I don't think I knew that it was like a characteristic to be a donkey kind of thing.
It is.
Another animal that is so cool that I would love, that I could be. They're so sweet.
Yeah,
I grew up with donkeys.
So sweet.
They're so sweet.
And the way they talk to each other, and they really talk to each other.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. They're so sweet. We have mini cows. I mean, that's the thing, is every animal is so precious and has their place in the world. All God's critters got a place in the world. That was a song I learned at camp when I was 5.
You did?
Yeah. That was the thing. Like when we were starting to talk, I was like, oh God, I don't even know where to start and what to talk about, because yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we started this and run out of time, will you do it again with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like every day? This was really fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'll do it again. And if this isn't what you wanted, we could do another take.
Absolutely. This is perfect. And
okay.
So if I could redo my life all over again, I would speak to you every single day because you make me feel good.
Oh, you're sweet.
I'm always happy
Yeah,
talking to you, and you're so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. She made me say that.
Like this. I'm just kidding.
I wasn't going to say that. She texted me and said, "Would you please say something about how I look?" No, she didn't.
I did. I made sure I need that to stroke my ego.
Well, this was really fun. I love you loads, and I'm so glad we did this.
Love you. Me too. Thank you for asking me. Love you. I'll be in Vegas. Are you there? Not next week. Not this week, but the next week?
I am.
Okay. I'll text you. We'll figure it out because I'll be there for a few days.
I'm excited.
All right.
Thank you. So fun.
Thank you. So fun. Thanks. Love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and be sure to follow Gabbing with Girlfriends on here so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media for more fun and in-depth conversations. Thank you.